going to work on the guys. This is Miss Mac again, and today we are going to work the mounting block. There is a video for the mounting block in Solid Professor, but I'm going to do a video for you today to maybe help you out and make it a little easier. The first thing we need to do is we need to open up a new part file. We need to use the standard inch that is under the English set, standard inch IPT. And we're going to create. To create this part, we're going to begin a new sketch on the XY plane. So we're going to come here, we're going to start a new 2D sketch on the XY plane. The first thing we need to draw is our first sketch. It's kind of trapezoid-like. So it looks like you would use a rectangle tool, but we really want to use the line tool and add the dimensions as we create this sketch. So let's start with the line tool. We're going to start at our point of origin, and notice that my dot for my cursor is yellow, except when I hit the point of origin, it turns green, or when I hit a point after I draw a line, it will turn green. So we're going to start here at line. We're going to click. We're going to go straight up. Make sure that our degree is at 90. We're making a straight line. And we're going to actually type in our dimension. And that number that you see highlighted in blue lets us know that we can actually type in the dimension that we need. This dimension is 2 inches. So we're going to type in 2 and press enter. So I'm going to zoom out so you can get a better look at the line. The next line is going to be a horizontal line. We're still in our line tool. And again, it is highlighted in blue, which means we can type in a dimension for it. This dimension is 1.5 inches, so 1.5 and enter. So now we have the first 2 lines of our trapezoidal shape. I'm going to do a right click to exit this tool, and then I'm going to start another series of lines. So I'm going to come and select my line tool again. I'm going to start at my point of origin, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line with a dimension of 3 inches. So now that I have this line that is 3 inches, I need to now create a vertical line. And this vertical line needs to be 0.75 inches. So now that I have this information in, I'm going to now make my diagonal line. So from my last line that was 0.75 inches, I'm going to connect it to my line that I made that was 1.5 inches. Click, right click, and OK. And this is my shape. I'm going to finish my sketch. Now, after I finish my sketch, I need to extrude this sketch 5 inches. So I'm going to select extrude because it's only one sketch there. It's the only thing that it can extrude. But we need to change this dimension from 1 inch and make it 5 inches. So I've changed my dimension to 5 and I select OK. So this is the base of which we're going to use to create our mounting block. The next step is we need to create a circle on the top. So on this surface here is where we need to make our circle. So if I look at my view cube, this tells me that this is going to be on top. So now I have my part just like it does on the PDF. The first thing we need to do is we need to come and start a new 2D sketch on this top part. We need to make a circle that has a diameter of 0.80 inches. So now that we have our circle, I'm going to right click and OK to get out of the circle tool. I now need to dimension my circle so that it is in the proper location for this part. So I'm going to select the dimension, and I'm going to select the center of the circle and my line to the right. and I'm going to bring it up. And so this dimension is going to be 1 inch. Again, remembering when we dimension, the arrows point to the areas that we're going to dimension. So this is pointing to the center of the circle and the line that is to the right of it. We now need to dimension the top of our part to the center of the circle. So we're going to hit the center of the circle, and we're going to hit the top line, and we're going to move that to the right. This dimension is 0.75 inches. So now that we have our circle and we have it dimensioned, we can right click OK. We need to add no more dimensions to this sketch. We're going to finish this sketch. We're going to come to extrude. We're going to select the circle that we just drew, but instead of adding to it, and if I give it a turn, you'll see that it's adding. Instead of adding to it, we actually want to cut. And we don't want to cut all the way through. We only want to cut this 0.5 inches. So I'm going to come and change my dimension from 5 inches to 0.5 inches and select OK. The next thing we need to do to this little hole that we created is we need to put a chamfer on it. That is another feature that we have here. So we're going to come up to the Modify section and select Chamfer. It doesn't know what to chamfer, so we're going to select our circle. Now, we have a distance on our chamfer window, and we need to change that from a distance of 0.125, and we need to change that distance to 0.2 inches. Click Apply, and then we can close this window. And you can tell now that this circle looks a little different than it was before. So our hole is there, it's created for us. We can now move on to the next step. The next step is we're going to create this half tombstone on our part. We're going to make this tombstone on the same surface that we made our circle. So I'm going to now rotate. I'm going to rotate my part so that's a little bit easier for me to sketch on. So we're going to start a new 2D sketch again on the same surface as our circle. But we want to start at the bottom. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a rectangle. Now, this rectangle has a dimension. It is 3 inches long and 0.75 inches wide. But we want to start at a corner. So we're going to select the rectangle tool and make sure that we use the 2-point rectangle. We're going to start at the bottom left corner. Notice my cursor, when I hover it over that point, it turns green. I'm going to pull my cursor up and to the right. So the first number that is highlighted blue is going to be our width. Again, that width is going to be 0.75. We're going to press Tab so that we can get our length. The length for this tombstone or half tombstone is 3 inches. So we're going to type 3 and press Enter. Right click and OK to exit out of the rectangle tool. So now that we have this rectangle drawn, we're going to finish this sketch. We're going to come to extrude. And again, instead of extruding, adding to it, we want to cut. And we want to make sure that we cut down 0.5 inches. And by default, because that was the last dimension we put in for extrude, it's going to default to 0.5 inches, but always double check. So now that we have this with a cut 0.5 inches, we're going to say OK. And to finish this part, we need to put a fillet. We need to round this out. So we're going to come up to fillet in our modify tab. And we actually want to modify just this line that's in that corner. Now we need to put a fillet on here, rounding this corner out, and we need to make that 0.5. So we're going to type in 0.5 where it's highlighted blue and select and then press enter. So now we have the top part of our mounting block. We're halfway there. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to put a tombstone on this slanted side, except we're not actually going to draw it on this slanted side. We're going to draw this in an imaginary space. So again, we're going to be on the top. We're going to start another 2D sketch on this top. And I'm going to turn this so it's easier for me to draw. So the first thing they ask you to do is to draw this line. And this line needs to come straight all the way through to the bottom. So we're going to select our line tool. We're going to start here and we're going to draw a straight line all the way till we hit that bottom. Notice to change the color. So now that we have our line here, we're going to do right click OK. So you can see that we have this line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a tombstone where this line is the center of the tombstone. And it also gives us dimension. So this tombstone is going to be 0.63 inches tall, and it's going to have an arc that has a radius of 0.5. So let's come into our line tool. We are going to start with our line at the bottom. We are going to bring this up 0.63. So now that we have our height, we are going to take our cursor, we're going to draw an arc, and then we're going to come down and we're going to close our tombstone. Click. Right click and OK. So now we are out of our line tool. We have our dimension here for our height, which is 0.630. Before I put the dimension on my arc, I am going to move this tombstone over so that the center point of the arc is on this line. I can now come and dimension this arc, which has a dimension of 0.5. Notice it adjusted my tombstone. Now what I want to do now is I want to zoom in to make sure I don't have any parts that's hanging out. So notice the line that was already there is red, but I have a section right here where it's blue. I don't need this little tail. So I'm going to come select trim, and I'm just going to trim that edge off. So now I have the perfect tombstone that I need. I'm going to finish this sketch. Before, we've just been cutting and we've been given a dimension to a cut. Here, we want to do something a little different. We're going to cut down on this, but if you turn your part, you're going to see that that sketch we made is kind of hovering. It's not really on anything. It's kind of just like in midair. So what we want to do now is we want to come to extrude. We want to click that tombstone that we made. First, we want to change the direction. We want to make sure that we're going to go down. We don't want to add to this. We want to cut. So make sure that we're in the cut feature. Now, next to this, we have an option. We don't want a distance. Okay, we want to change this so that it is attached to our part. and we wanted to cut to a very specific location, and we want to cut, I'm going to cancel this for a moment. We want to actually make it go down to this line here. So we're going to come to extrude. We're going to select our tombstone, select cut, and then we're going to change the extents from distance to 2. Now we're going to tell this where we want this to cut to. So we're going to come down and we want it to cut it just to this line. Okay, and then select OK. Now sometimes it will let you select that line, other times it won't. So let's cancel. Go back in, select that tombstone, select cut. We want to change it to 2. We're in profile now. So we want to cut 2. So this is not going to give us the option we want. So now is where I tell my kids that there's more than one way to do this. We know that when we made this part, that the total length of this part here was 2 inches. And we know that this part here is 0.75. But we need to be able to cut to this line here. So if I did some math, so if I have a distance of 2 inches and I have this part that is 0.75, I need to be able to cut 1.25. If I add 1.25 to 0.75, I'm going to get 2 inches. And that's where we want to go. We want to cut it to this section here. So we're going to come into extrude. Okay, let's turn it around to make sure we select our tombstone. We're going to change it to cut. We're going to leave this at distance, but instead of it being 0.5, we're going to type in 1.25. That's going to bring us to that line, and we're going to select OK. So now when you look at this cut, this is flat. If we would have drawn it on this slanted line, your cut would have been slanted. So believe it or not, this is almost to the end. The very last thing that we need to do to this is we need to round out these corners. And so the way that we round out these corners is we're going to select fillet. We're going to hit just that line so it's the corner. The good part is that we already have that dimension of 0.5 because that was the last dimension we used for fillet. But we need to make sure that we have all 4 corners. So we're going to turn our part around to make sure we just get that line. And I like to put this on an angle to make sure I get the right line. We need this line here. Turn it around. And we need this line here. We're going to click apply. We can X out of this fillet window. And let's go home. And just like that, we created the mounting block. Please make sure that when you save this part, it is your first name, last initial, _ mounting block. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for you. And you guys have a great day.